Well, welcome everybody to the Cabinet meeting of Melton Borough Council. A reminder that this is a formal public meeting and are we live streaming, is that the right phrase? Welcome to Chair of Scrutiny, Councillor Mike Brown. Thank you for coming, Mike. So I'll go straight to apologies for absence. Any apologies? No? Okay. Minutes of the last meeting. Now, I wasn't present for the last meeting, so I have to ask if it's your wish that they are a correct record. Please show if that's the case. Okay, and I'm authorised to sign as recording that we've agreed they are a true record. Thank you for that. Yes, Pat. Oh, that's both. Sorry, I meant it's both sets, the exempt set and the. Did you want to say anything about? Is there anything wrong about those? Well, but now be careful because they're exempt. So. Okay, all right. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? See none, no declarations of interest. So we now move on to the two scrutiny reports. I'll invite Chairman of Scrutiny to introduce the reports. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Leader. I'll deal with quite briefly, I think, with the report on regulatory compliance in housing. I think we're all familiar with the high level of activity around housing over the last 12 months and the inspection, etc. But I think it was important that we had this updated report at the last scrutiny meeting. A number of comments were made that are set out. The only one I wanted to draw particular attention to, because I think we're all familiar with the fact that information can be snapshotted to present a misleading view. So there was a question asked about the homes that were not up to standard in the report, and the clarification, which I thought was very, very informative, was that there are no homes managed by Melton Borough Council that are in such a bad state that you would have reason to actually question why they hadn't been brought up to standard. But some homes, for instance, might be be due for a new kitchen, but that kitchen currently is still in a good state of repair and functional. So the reasons why some homes are shown as not up to decent home standard are relatively minor, and action is always taken if there's a real need to carry out work on any particular home. So nobody is living in substandard accommodation in Melton Borough Council property. I thought it was important just to highlight that one. Other than that, the comments are all there in the report. I'm happy to take any questions as usual, but I don't want to add anything further.
Mike, any questions from anybody? Yes, Pat.
Thank you. Just the business about asbestos, and we're not removing it apparently. We just go occasionally and check that it's okay. But we're talking here about houses which could last another 100 years, aren't we? You know, because Victorian houses are still being. So is there no plan to get rid of asbestos?
I was going to say, with respect, I couldn't answer that in detail, but the point at scrutiny where the question was asked was querying about whether there was any measurable risk by the approach being taken of checking the asbestos every 5 years. And I think the assurance that was being sought was that appropriate levels of inspection are carried out and appropriate assessments of whether a risk exists are carried out. And that was really where we were at scrutiny. But obviously, if in terms of the detail underneath your question, it's probably appropriate for an officer to respond to that.
If Michelle covers the broader point.
So yeah, from a compliance perspective, it's really important that we understand where there is asbestos present in our homes, that we've got proper management plans in place, and that we can identify where those risks could be. Just because asbestos is present in a home doesn't mean that it's posing a risk if it's being managed appropriately and not being, subject to building works, etc. So the assurance that we've been able to give the committee is that we know where the asbestos is. We've got the plans in place. We monitor those. We manage those. If we've got any contractors that are going to work in homes or indeed any of our communal areas, we can tell them what's in place. So that's about a management and maintenance plan rather than any proactive removal plan. And that is a safe and appropriate way for us to operate.
Yeah, I can understand all that. But as I say, we're talking up here about houses which might be around and used for another 100 years, mightn't they? So all I'm thinking of, I don't know how much it would cost to remove asbestos from a house. I don't know, or how difficult it would be. But in the long run, might it not be cheaper just to aim to get rid of it?
Certainly a thought. 100 years' time, I wouldn't have thought the properties that we've got with asbestos in likely to be around in 100 years because they're rather ancient, aren't they? Sorry, Clive, do you want to?
Thank you, Chair. Just to reference that the statutory requirement is for us to prevent, or where not reasonably practical, reduce to the lowest level reasonably practicable the spread of asbestos, so that if you were undertaking works which was likely to expose it, that would engage that obligation, that statutory obligation. If it is not exposed and works not being undertaken, then as long as there is no risk of escape, we're complying with that duty. So it's a matter of a case-by-case basis, or I mean, in practice, it's probably about type of house and type of works that we'd look at it. But there's not an absolute responsibility to get rid of it as long as we're doing everything we can to ensure that there's not risk of fibre spreading. So that's the basis on which we would normally approach it.
I'm still a tad surprised. I'm not suggesting we would ever do anything illegal, especially with asbestos, but I'm a tad surprised that we've not considered, even costed apparently, getting rid of it. That's all. And what about houses which are sold to their tenants? Are they sold complete with asbestos? I don't know.
I'm sure that when they're sold, that they would be aware of what they're buying. You know, caveat emptor, or is it emptor caveat? I never remember. It's up to them. You know, when they're purchasing, there'll be a survey done which would reveal it. Chief Executive, do you want to comment?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I suppose the question being asked is, would it be good value for money to invest in the properties that have asbestos in them over and above other things that we may invest in? So things like climate change, energy efficiency, and other improvements we make to our homes. And those are the kind of questions that we need to ask when we review our HRA business plan and make long-term strategic investments or long-term strategic plans for our investment program. So I think there's a time and a place for that question to be asked and contemplated along other investment choices. And that's something we can kind of feed into the consideration for the next process. But I suspect for the reasons that Clive and Michelle have indicated, we are complying, we are making sure our properties are safe, and in that context the risk is managed and monitored carefully. So that's where we need to make choices about where we spend our money to make it work best for our tenants ultimately.
Mike, would you say we finished with that particular report? I don't think there's any other questions. So second report then.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. This report concerns the report that we received at scrutiny on the more or less first year of the Landlord Assurance Board. The Landlord Assurance Board was set up in April 2024. So this was its first annual report to scrutiny, which is one of the requirements set for the Landlord Assurance Board. In many respects, because it's just been established. A lot of the report was about how we've gone about establishing the Landlord Assurance Board. But nevertheless, I think one of the features of the discussion we had, and I do want to highlight a number of the comments that were made, is that at my invitation, the tenant representatives from the Landlord Assurance Board did actually attend scrutiny and were invited to comment and take part in the discussion. I think there's no doubt that the participation of those tenant representatives has added a whole new dynamic to that board, and the way in which we actually see our role as a landlord has been invaluable to us. And this meeting was no exception, and they raised a number of issues which I think were really important. So I'm just going to go through some of the comments, not every single one, but quite a few of them to draw attention of Cabinet to them. Now, the first of those was how we encourage people to get involved. We've been fortunate that a number of tenants did come forward and have taken part in the Assurance Board, but they were very clear in saying to us that getting tenants involved means going out and talking to them more than inviting them to come in and talk to us. And dare I say it, one of the tenant reps I was talking to outside of the meeting said that when we go out and talk to the tenants, then we ought to be careful not to be too suited and booted and official looking when we do it. And I think it was a very relevant. I think you would fit the bill perfectly today, Leader. Maybe more than is necessary, but we won't go into that. But it was a really important point that they were making, is that bringing people to us is actually quite intimidating. We need to actually, take more time to spend going out to them in their communities and in their homes. And I know that the relatively recently, she's been with us a while now, tenant engagement, appointed tenant engagement officer, is working very hard on exactly that. And I think there's going to be opportunities for us as members as well to take part in more activities engaging with tenants. Secondly, there was a very clear view from the tenants that we need, and it links to that point, that we need to encourage more participation in the tenants your choice group. There was an interesting discussion about whether we should offer incentives. Cake was mentioned, but it was very firmly said again by one of the tenant representatives that they'll come because it's relevant, not because you offer them cake. So it's how we actually make what we do seem relevant. Well, it is relevant, but make it relevant to the tenants to involve their participation. There was a comment that tenants do not always feel believed and listened to, and that culturally officers and contractors need to listen to tenants and what they are saying. Now, again, what wasn't being said there is everything a tenant says has got to be taken absolutely as factual and correct, and has to be accepted. What they were saying is that there's too much officialdom in the way they're dealt with, and that people feel that they're not being heard. And it's a message we need to not just take on board as a council, but ensure that our contractors, and I think there were one or two comments about contractors in particular being dismissive of tenants, raising issues around repairs and other such things. So it's important that we actually respond to that. Again, a suggestion that maybe we should have an open day for tenants. I know we've had other activities for tenants. We had this summer. Do we call it a party, get together, for tenants? But again, organising something where they can come along and feedback on issues on a wider basis than the Your Choice group. And for instance, the upcoming benefit changes was mentioned as one of the areas where some face-to-face, such an open day, might be of benefit. The importance of the new code of conduct was raised. Now, that new code of conduct has been formulated with input from tenants, and I think that's actually really important. And it's about ensuring that they get the best service and are treated with respect. and that the timeframes and responses for repairs and etc. are set out for tenants and contractors. Interestingly, again, coming from tenants, that the council needs to be better at promoting itself. There was a real sense from them that we don't always do ourselves justice in actually communicating all the many good things that we do. And certainly as part of that, and it throughout all this is communication and dialogue, that the tenant reps were saying very clearly how taking part had given them an opportunity to see things slightly differently and to understand some of the processes in a way that they hadn't before, and to be more positive themselves about what the council is doing on their behalf and with them. And extending that on a wider basis would clearly be a benefit in the way we go about our work as a landlord. And then I think, oh, no, not quite finally, there's the issue, and again, it flows from that in the sense that the council doesn't contact tenants who don't contact them. Although that is already part of the plan to actually improve our communication with tenants, and for instance, ensuring that there's an annual contact with tenants who haven't been in touch with us. Possibly even under-reporting of repairs or not feeling able to come forward with issues of repairs. So it's already part of the plan going forward that we will be reaching out to tenants if we've not had contact with them. And again, it's part of getting to know your tenants better, which is a key part of the way forward. And then this is really a repeat. It says a member commented that essentially there are 1,700 households, and in order to engage with them, the best way to go to them and not getting them to the council. A member was actually me as chair, just in summing up that. But I think it was part of a theme that came out in that discussion. But I think just generally, I'd like to say, I mean, for fear of repeating ourselves, the participation of those tenant reps and what they bring to how we operate, I think has been invaluable. And going forward, I think we're going to see this board as a real asset to the council, and a way in which we can improve and enhance our service to tenants across the board. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mike. Oh, go ahead. Go on.
Just going to say in conclusion, I apologise for the dark glasses. I'm not trying to strive for anonymity. I forgot to change into my day glasses getting out, but I couldn't read the computer without them on.
Well, I recognised you anyway, so don't worry. Mike, we have actually already responded in a small way, I think, to some of the comments that have been made. Michelle, do you want to make any comment along the lines that?
Thank you. So yeah, one of the things that that Pip asked me for some assurance on was around how we responded to that point about going out to our communities rather than expecting everybody to come here. So something that Kerry, as our tenant engagement lead, has been doing is looking at estate walks and making sure that we've got opportunities for members and officers and partners and tenants to be part of that. But making sure that that's done with purpose. There's no point in us just going into communities to talk and then have no so what attached to that. So that's one of the ways. But she's also started to have a more informal dialogue in lots of different ways with tenants. So just as an example, this week she's been making Easter bonnets with the tenants at Wilton Court, for example, and it's just building that relationship. And sometimes that's relating to a project, sometimes it's about making the connection, but I'm really clear that that's a really key focus. We've also had the review undertaken by TPAS, which was a commitment that we'd made prior to our inspection. That review has concluded and we're now working through our action plan associated with that, and their reflections were very similar to those that came from the committee, actually saying the foundations are there now, but you've got to go out to your communities, because actually coming into a council is formal, it's structured, and we need to make sure we're being as varied as possible in those ways. So it absolutely taken on board and taken seriously, and our tenants will be the link to tenants that we're not currently reaching. So they have so many roles that they're playing already, and they really have made an enormous difference to us.
I just add that with respect to the approach from contractors, that is being looked at in a broader context as well, because how people are treated by contractors coming in is very important. And there has been a tendency over many years in many places for contractors to think, oh, well, they're just council tenants. Therefore, they should be grateful for what they're getting rather than they should be getting what they deserve. And I think that change of attitude is needed there as well from some contractors. Now, has anybody else? Yes, Sharon.
I attended the scrutiny night, and it was really nice to hear what the tenants had to say. And one of the people on that board has been previously quite a critic of the council, and she's on my ward, and she said she can 100% already see a different commitment from the council and a better understanding of how it works. So that's a real positive. So yeah, she's really pleased with how it's changed.
Thanks, Ed. Nobody else then wishes to add anything? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Mike. You can stay for the rest if you wish, or not, as the case may be. Thanks for coming. So we now move on to item 5, which is the town centre action plan, and it's a very straightforward proposition. Before I ask Sharon if she wants to say anything, I want to re-emphasise that this piece of work was done, was set in train by the UK SPF funding. It took a little bit of time to get up and running, but we got there in the end. I notice with a little bit of amusement that at page 107 of the big document, there's it appears that Melton is now a city. You should notice that image of the city. So there's a bit of cut and pasting there that went adrift, I think. So I don't know if they know something about local government reform that we don't, but perhaps Melton's going to be a city. But that's an amusing aside, really. But I think it's the other encouraging thing about this is that it will feed into an SPF for planning, which will be helpful. SPD, sorry, SPD. But the other thing I'd like to make a comment on is that, of course, the execution of a lot of this falls within the area of highways, which is outside the province of this council prior to local government reform. So, but I think it was been a worthwhile journey, and it's we got there now. So I'm very pleased. Sharon, did you want to say anything on it?
I think when the residents and businesses get to see this, it'll, everybody says, oh, we forgot about the town. We don't do anything for the town. When they see this as a plan and it's all laid out and, how we want town to look and everything, and the inward investment roundtable meetings, there's actually a strategy there that, we want to deliver for the town. So I think when people see that, they'll actually believe that we want to do things.
I think the important thing will be communicating to the public and helping their understanding that you need a document like this to be able to go for those large pots of funding. I think some people will see a strategy and just say, what's the point of a strategy? But it is that understanding for the community and the public that we need that design guide. We need those principles to then try and access funding. Otherwise, we just would not be successful with bids.
So we've got a business forum set up, which Lydia's going to come to, and we're going for the businesses, and we're going to talk about this plan so that they're part of the journey and they actually understand and they can talk to us and ask questions and feel involved and engage with it more.
Ask when that will be. Do you know?
May the 19th.
May the 19th. Right. Okay. Thank you. Margaret, did you want to add?
Yes, excellent. I think it's really good to see this actually on paper now. We've been talking about it for a fair while, and it's been quite a long journey, but I'm really gratified to see it before us because, as my sort of colleague Sarah said, without this, we won't be able to apply for various funding should funding come along. But now we have a plan, and to deliver that plan, we need outside funding, and that's the next step. So we're part way along that journey. But there is one thing I would like to mention on page 23 of the report, the Country Park Master Plan. It's a draft document. I don't think many of us have actually seen the draft. I have mentioned it before that it could be circulated if you wouldn't mind, so that everyone could have a look at it and see what the proposals were for the country park. And I know it's officers will liaise closely with a portfolio holder to develop a comprehensive plan, but to be honest with you, I'd like to have a little bit of notice and to see that plan, to see what our thoughts are before one particular person takes that forward. I think that'd be very helpful. So if that could be done, I'd be very appreciative. Thank you.
I'm assuming that in terms of governance, we'll have to approve it, won't we?
Yeah, just to give some assurance. So this report just provides an update on that piece of work. As you say, it's a draft. It will come before Cabinet, as well as not just the document itself, also the funding mechanisms required to actually deliver it, precisely to the point that Councillor Cox has made, that a strategy is one thing, but you need a way to deliver it. So that's the work that's happening at the moment, and will absolutely come to this Cabinet, and there'll be opportunities for informal dialogue well in advance of that as well. So we're working on that at the moment.
Was it something else you wanted to add? Sorry. Okay, thank you.
Just going to say we've all forgot to thank the officers for the hard work.
Yeah, I'd like to say as well, my goodness me, there's some work gone into this. And I don't think I saw any mention of the aging population, but I presume it was all taken into account, especially when we're talking about, there's a lot in there about benches. When we're talking about numbers of benches, obviously the aging population indicates that we need perhaps a few more. Tourism, and people might know that I'm a great believer in notice boards, and we've got a notice board in the marketplace, and it's owned by the council, and I looked at it the other day, and I think there were two leaflets in there. One was about something this year, 2025, and the other one was about something in 2024, and it could have been moved, couldn't it? It was odd, but I'd like to see more notice boards generally, because and especially for tourism, because when people arrive in the town, they'd like to know in the town, they like to know what's going on, everywhere, including the cattle market. And a little while ago, I was talking to a couple at the bus stop in Windsor Street, and they had come in from Leicester. They just fancied coming to Melton, which I thought was nice, bus ride. But I asked them if they'd been to the cattle market, and they didn't even realise it was there. So we could do perhaps a little bit more, and the same with the cattle market. I hope that there's information up there about what's going on in the town. Thank you.
This is one of the things I've been emailing about this week. Chapel Street, Mill Street and the Country Park, we've got outdated big notice boards with them nice big hut looking things that look really nice, and it's all outdated, and it wouldn't be a big cost to get something to go inside, cardboard printed properly that looks nice and is updated. And I think that's three really important things when you're visiting and you're parking in the car park and you get out and your first impression is something. We don't even have a market on a Wednesday, or events that don't happen anymore and haven't done for years. That's how outdated it is, and I think we should get that done as soon as possible, hoping that we get good footfall in the summer.
I think Lydia's made a note of that, so that'll bubble through eventually when there's some money. Right. Did you? So we've got recommendations at 2.1 and 2.2. Yes, Pat.
Sorry, something to add. There's a lot in there about the country park and the nearness of the country park, which is good. But we've also got on the south, we've got the Kirby Fields Park, And we've tried to do more with the woodland and everything. I don't think that's mentioned in here, and it would be nice if it was.
Pat, the thing is, this is the town centre guide, isn't it?
But well,
So,
yes, but
we
the
can't put.
country park isn't in the town centre either.
That's true.
And there's quite a
All right.
bit in here about that.
No, all right. Bit closer though, isn't it? I mean, it does come down into it's almost into the town centre, isn't it? Really? Snow Hill comes down to Snow Hill, doesn't it?
Beefields is not the town centre, but all I'm saying is, does it hurt to say that if you're in the town, you can walk to Kirby Fields?
Reference it, yeah. I see what you mean. Kirby Fields forever, or was that Strawberry Fields? I can't remember. Yeah, okay. I'm going to move the recommendations at 2.1 and 2.2. Have a seconder. All those in favour? None against. That's carried. Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to the highlight of the night, item 6, which is disposal of the cattle market. So just to make a brief comment on that, obviously this was a policy that was agreed in 2020. So we agreed we would carry it forward, and so now we're getting to that stage. I did ask a question apropos the plan, and that was the relationship between site 1A and site 1B, and there's a road between the two, and I gather we're retaining that against possible future developments. I would, whether we call it a ransom strip, I don't know, but that's not part of the sale. So that access into the interior of the whole site is retaining in our ownership. That is right, isn't it, Chief Executive? That's correct. Okay. So anybody got any comments on the recommendations? Yes, Sarah. Yes.
Yeah, as portfolio holder chair, just a few sort of comments. You know, we've been really clear as an administration that we were advised as a council to rationalise the assets, and it's been a slow process of the asset development programme where the council has effectively looked at where we can generate income and therefore retain those plots of land or premises, and where those that do not maximise our income or offer us a good opportunity for a stream of revenue. This car park was a relatively low earning revenue car park, and therefore for a number of years has been identified as potential for sale. It offers limited long-term value in that case, and it would also require significant investment to maintain that car park now at this stage. There is a strong market interest in the site from a number of sectors, and I'm not going to go through those because I don't want to predetermine who might actually be interested. But it aligns with our corporate priority, which is that maximisation of the value of our assets. And obviously we consider King Street in the same vein last year. This has been discussed with the asset management group. It was part of the discussions for a long period of time. It's been earmarked. And again, it's that local government association published guidance that we're following in relation to this. Whilst this, I think importantly in the question that might be asked by the community is in relation to the development we're seeing at the stockyard, why are we selling a car park? The new development offers parking on site. It has been analysed and there's considered to be sufficient parking around the town in the many other car parks that we hold around the town. So that analysis has been done, and we do consider there to be enough parking across the town, even with the new development occurring. It will not interfere with the stockyard development either. So as you mentioned, this is not, you mentioned earlier about the sale of the stockyard. This isn't the sale of our development. This is just the sale of a car park area that we no longer need. Okay. And therefore I'm happy to propose the recommendation at 2.1.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, and the other thing I wanted to add, if I may, this will not prejudice the temporary use of it during the construction process, because the time it will take, that will be okay. Right, anybody? Yes,
When people put offers in, it will come back to cabinet for us to decide who it's sold to. Just to clarify.
in terms of governance, I believe that will be the case. Is that right?
I think perhaps looking to the monitoring officer, but I think looking at the decision is about delegating authority to the director in consultation with the portfolio holder. Obviously, there'll be opportunities for cabinet to be briefed on the outcome and to inform the final decision that's taken. But the report would give the formal decision to the officer and the relevant portfolio holder. But it'll be a matter for cabinet to decide how they wish to discuss it informally in advance of that final decision being taken.
There was 2 options, as it were, of similar value, give or take. Somebody wanted to put in I don't know, a spa, and somebody else wanted to put in housing. We might say, well, we'd rather have housing than a spa, wouldn't we? As a cabinet, we might want to say we were socially and collectively, we think choice A is better than choice B, almost irrespective of the price, if it was just within a smidgen. I think that is that the sort of thing you're thinking about, Sharon?
So like employment or hotels or whatever choices come in, last time with the other site, we all spoke together, didn't we, and sort of kind of made a decision privately, didn't we? So I'm just thinking of that type of thing.
What do you think about that? That's
I think the decision had come to me as portfolio holder. I would normally expect to be briefed on options as they progress anyway. So I don't think there's any reason that even if the delegation is given to me, that it wouldn't come to a cabinet briefing for us to discuss those options as they arise, because I wouldn't want to proceed on such a big decision really without consulting you all anyway, because we had some really valid points with the last sale that we actually then ended up tasking Councillor Clancy to go and look at development. So I think to give us that appropriate mix. So I think it's really valid to just take on board what colleagues are saying.
we're a small team, and I mean, as we did with the stockyard design, we worked as a team to all chip in. So I don't think there's any constitutional crisis here, is there really?
I mean, I'll just say, obviously, we'll comply with the relevant best value obligations that we hold as the council, but we would mirror a similar approach to that which worked successfully last time, and we can discuss that with you, leader.
Yeah.
No, I just think if we follow the same process as before when we sold, well, when we sort of started the journey of selling the other site, I think that's a good sort of practice to follow, because we do work together. We just don't make a decision and then not tell anybody. I think we all have that long discussion beforehand. Yeah, so I'm happy to go with that.
So it's been proposed. I'll second it. And all those in favour? None against. That's carried. Thank you very much. The meeting's closed.